Hello, I'm Ward Bell of IdeaBlade with another in a series of videos about the TempHire cocktail reference application. My good friend and colleague Marcel Good is the chief architect and principal maintainer of Cocktail, an open source framework for end-to-end development of XAML-based business applications. Marcel gave me a guided tour of the TempHire application, and this series is the result. This is the third TempHire project video within the TempHire series. It looks at the staffing resource module, a master detail screen with nested tabs that is typical of line of business applications. The main topic of discussion is view composition, the buildup of large views from smaller view parts that are simpler to write and manage. By way of example, we drill into the resource management view model to understand the mechanics of a composed view. Let's hear Marcel explain it.
Let's take a look at one view model where there is some more action. So we'll expand the staffing resource folder here. That's where everything for our main workspace sits, right? There is only one module built out in TempHire for simplicity. It's the resource management module, and that's where it is.
Well, let me see if I understand. The thing that you were calling a workspace is, in this application, conceptually, we tend to do one of these folders to represent a workspace as well as a module, and if we had another one, we would have another folder and stuff. That's how you organize it.
Exactly, and you could break your application up that way. In case of Silverlight, this could be your delineation of the different SAP files too, right? If you wanted to have the workspace is actually dynamically loaded, right? So this would be nice, clean separations, and they just plug into the shell.
And then they'd be in separate projects.
Yes.
Here, it's just for simplicity. We're just doing folders within one project.
Yeah. So TempHire is very highly decomposed. So we take advantage of composing the UI together out of smaller view models and views that do very specific things. Instead of having humongous view models and humongous XAML that goes with it, we're breaking the problem down to smaller problems.
Right, so that each tab would be one, and
each
and then
tab
the tabs
would be one.
them.
Within the tabs could be more decomposition going on. And so that's why you see here several view models and corresponding views down here that ultimately compose together as the workspace that we speak of.
And it's pretty much Caliburn that's helping us with putting the boxes inside the other boxes inside the other boxes, right?
It's MEF that's helping us on the view model side to compose the view models together, and then it's Caliburn Micro that helps us do the same on the view level to compose them together and stick things into content controls and stuff like that.
Yeah, our Russian dolls thing.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, just quickly, you'll notice here that again, some of the views need WPF-specific XAML and Silverlight-specific XAML if we were to look at the Silverlight solution. But again, what this points out, you see that some of the views are actually common. So because it's highly decomposed, you can reuse view models where there is really no difference between Silverlight and WPF. If this was all one view, you would have to have two huge XAML that need to be different from Silverlight and WPF.
Right. And also, this allows me to reuse some of these parts potentially in another module that might have an address or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's look at one of the view and see how very little there is actually in here. Similar to the shell we were looking at, right? We just have placeholders. So this workspace is actually composed of two main items. There is a search pane at the top, and there is an active item at the bottom.
That's a lot like the shell, where we had a toolbar at the top and an active item below.
This is, if you remember, this workspace is actually a master detail view, right? All right. So we close this down and we take a look at the view model that's behind it. A lot of the action is actually going in here. So again, we see in the constructor how this view model is composed together out of various parts. There's a view model that represents the search pane that's injected. There is a factory for a detail view model. That's the part at the bottom. There's another factory for a name editor. You can edit the staffing resource
Stephen,
name.
right.
Stephen, yeah. There's a little pop-up for that. There's an error handler that we inject so we can display errors if they happen. There is the cocktail dialog manager, which helps you to do pop-ups, out of the box functionality, and there's the toolbar manager again.
That's a cocktail thing?
Which one?
The toolbar manager?
No, that's a TempHire thing.
A TempHire thing.
You'll find that in the common project.
Mm-hmm.
But the dialog manager is a cocktail thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at this view model here, there's a block of can methods up there. This is the caliber and microwave to enable, disable buttons, essentially, in your views, if a certain action can be executed or not.
Right, so I have an add, delete, save, cancel,
Yeah.
refresh, and then I've got a can, save,
Right,
and so
so
forth.
there's very little in here. It says when you can actually add, right?
And if I
this
can, it'll
add-
be disabled, right?
Right, right. And this corresponds with the action then down here, which implements the actual add.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the details of this we can come back and see
Yes.
on our own as we
Yes,
visit this.
we can, yeah. So the last thing I want to point out here is we have the notion of an active unit of work and an active detail, right? We talked about the unit of work previously in the domain services. So you select a staffing resource in your grid at the top, and that becomes your active detail, right? That has a unit of work attached. So
if I remember correctly, Stephen, there's a Stephen unit of work,
Yeah.
and then there's a Paul Stephen of work,
Yeah.
and every time we keep the same one as we go back and forth. But if we go for Sally, who we've never seen before, it spins up a new one.
Yes.
And that's what's the active
Correct.
unit of work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so everything is around this active unit of work. That's the data that we're currently working on. So if you're making changes to Stephen and then save them, that happens in the active unit of work that we have. If we quickly look at this, this is actually getting the unit of work from the active detail, which is the view model that represents the detail, right? And it maintains the unit of work. And then we can see that, for example, when you save, that operation is executed against the active unit of work, right? On line 191, it does the commit of whatever pending changes.
Which means if I've got pending changes for Stephen and pending changes for Paul, I'm only going to save the ones for Stephen if
Yes,
he's active.
yes, that is correct. Yeah. And similarly for like the delete, it's again same thing, except we here in the case of the delete, we use the dialog manager to first get confirmation from the user. But then again, we do the delete against the active unit of work. And the same goes for edit, where we're actually starting the detail view model in the edit mode, right? So the view models actually have the capabilities to be in read-only mode or in edit mode. And so that's, I think, all I want to say about this view model. We could drill further down. You'll see basically rinse and repeat. As you drill down, it becomes finer and finer grained. And ultimately, it all gets composed together at this level that we're looking at. And that's where the action then happens in the various view models.
One more question. If you'll open up the Solution Explorer for me.
Yeah.
So all of these composed view models, if I'm looking at Stephen at this resource management view level, are they going to be sharing that same Stephen unit of work?
They are, yes. So that's where the unit of work manager comes in that we saw in the domain services project. So we can see, just as an example, if we take the phone list, they get the unit of work manager injected so they can get the right unit of work. Yeah, that's how the sharing takes place.
In the next TempHire project video, Marcel talks about some of the miscellaneous TempHire UI integration components that grease the wheels, so to speak. You'll find that video, other videos in the TempHire series, and much more at cocktail.ideablade.com.